Welcome to a special edition of The Reporters, the show that delves into Evanston news and the stories behind the news. I'm Bob Seidenberg, your moderator with the Evanston Review, and my fellow panelists tonight. We'll start with Bill Smith, publisher of Evanston Now. Welcome, Bill. Jennifer Fisher, editor of Evanston Patch. I guess I should welcome you too. And Sean Jones, a reporter with the Evanston Roundtable. And tonight we have really the distinct pleasure of interviewing candidates from Evanston's 6th Ward. We're going to go right into it. It's with us tonight. We'll have the candidates introduce themselves and give us a little idea of why you're running for office for a 4-year term.
Great.
Mark?
Thank you. My name
I gave it. You know what?
My name is Mark Sloane, and I'm running as I ran 4 years ago because I think I can add value to the decisions that the City Council is making. Specifically, I come from a finance background, and I think if you take a look at every decision that the City Council has been making lately, or the big ones, $10 million, $2 million, they need some financial rigor associated with those decisions. We need details. We need to understand what our investments are, what our loan repayments are. And that's part of the reason that I'm running, without a doubt. And additionally, I think in the last 4 years, recreation has kind of taken a back seat here in the city. Recreation, whether it's building an indoor recreation facility with private funds, whether it's rebuilding Robert Crown with private funds, or whether it's doing some additional programs so that kids 18 to 24 who are out doing other things can maybe do something different and be productive in the community. Just saw on the news a couple days ago that Father Flager held a 12-week basketball tournament, and the result of that was gang violence went down in his community because of that. I think we can do those type of things here in Evanston, and we need to focus back on recreation and what the kids in that 18 to 24 age group really need and want.
And we should say a little bit about your background. You have
Absolutely. I'm a CFO, been last CPA CFO, and I've been a 10-year member of the Parks and Rec Board here in the city. Just finished my 2 terms last year. I also chaired the Mayor's Budget Advisory Committee and chaired the District 65 Budget Advisory Committee as well in the last couple of years.
Alderman?
Hi. My name is Mark Tendam. I am the current alderman of the 6th Ward. I was sworn in 4 years ago with the rest of my colleagues on the council, and I truly want another term to sort of build on the momentum that I think this council has gained and the experience we've all had. If you know, half of the council is actually new in the past 4 years. Plus we have a whole new staff at City Hall, manager on down, and a new mayor. Although she was on council, she is new in the mayor position. So I think that, you know, we really, if you look back 4 years ago where council was, we're a whole different picture. And I think we have really gelled. I think, like I said, we have a lot of momentum, and I think we really would do well together in the next term.
Jenny, do you want to lead off?
Mark Sloane, you talked about finances a little
Absolutely.
bit, and I'd asked you some questions earlier for Patch, and you mentioned that you opposed the last 2 tax increment financing districts that the council approved at Dempster and Dodge and Chicago and Maine. Can you tell me a little bit more about why you oppose those? Do you oppose TIFs, period, or just those?
No, I think whether it's a TIF or not, we need to think more creatively about how we're funding economic development. So specifically for Dempster Dodge, I'd rather see us not spend $2 million to pretty up the mall, to give it to somebody who bought the mall on pennies on the dollar, to help potentially pad his pocket when he flips it in the next couple of years. I'd much rather spend that money on incenting the tenants that are going to move in there. Do something like we did with Home Depot and do a revenue sharing, a sales tax sharing scenario. That's where we're going to get the benefits of new employees and new sales taxes, with the tenants, not with the owner of the mall. So I oppose it because ultimately it's not doing what we think it should be doing, which is providing more revenue and more jobs for the city. On Main and Chicago, again, you're going to need 60 to 70% of that building leased before you even start construction. That's typically what construction loans are. So when we give that builder $10 million, I'm opposed to let's build it and hope somebody will come and rent it. I want to incent the people that are interested in tenants that, again, are bringing jobs to the community. And let's not worry about infrastructure. Let's worry about employers and bringing additional people here. So that's why I'm opposed to both of those.
We should explain our terms. A TIF in this case, in Maine and Chicago, is one designated TIF.
Tax
and under
increment
a TIF,
financing district, right, is Dempster Dodge.
which taxes are frozen for a certain amount of
23
time.
years, right.
Right.
Absolutely.
With money, the incremental going back into development during that period.
Right.
And Alderman Tendam, I would ask you, I believe you voted for both those TIF districts. Can you?
I voted for the Chicago Maine TIF, and I opposed the
You opposed.
Dempster Dodge TIF.
Okay, so can you explain why you split your vote there?
Yes. I think TIFs have served this city very well. Although I did question from the beginning, I chaired the joint task force or joint that looked at the TIFs before they went to council, and I raised the question then, is this appropriate and has this been done widely, having a TIF with one parcel of property and one owner? I felt it was in the best interest for everybody to advance it to council, but I never really found the answer to that. The people that have been consulting on this and guiding us through this process really didn't give me much reassurance in the examples they provided. And ultimately, when I talked to the developer, he really wasn't on board with the TIF. I don't think he was very excited about it, and I don't think it was really something that is going to work out well. I think it's like, it is up to the individual tenants and individual businesses to come there and make something of that TIF. As far as Chicago, Maine, I do think, at first I struggled with it, and I know that Alderman Wynn and the others that were working on the TIF took it off the table many times and added to it, revamped it. It has a lot more now to do with transportation hub and transportation-oriented living. It also addresses a serious need for parking in that area, which I know not everyone agrees is a TIF issue, but I believe it certainly is. TIF parking is one of the most difficult things to find in the city at certain times, and I think it really does add to the effectiveness of a business area and a workplace, and transportation as well. Mass transit.
Over the past 4 years, the property tax levy in Evanston has gone up by 14%, which is basically double the rate of inflation during that time. What's your target for the next 4 years of property tax increases for Evanston taxpayers? Alderman Tendam?
I would like to hold the line on taxes. We've done this for the last year. I think that if not holding the line, but maybe paralleling the inflation rate would be a good lead to take. We have an obligation to the residents to spend and monitor the taxing that we do, and I think people expect us to be very wise about it. But we all know that even though we only get 20% of the tax, overall tax, property tax that the city that is levied, it's still a lot of money. 20% is a whole lot of money for most of our resident property owners, and we have to be very careful about that. So I would say not flat taxing, but I think just moderate increases to provide for inflation is really a goal that I'd like to see.
Mark Sloane.
Yeah, I think we also need to minimize that, but I also think we need to focus on other avenues of taxes coming into the city. Property taxes is one big piece. Things like really pushing shopping Evanston. I go and buy my gas maybe on the way to the freeway or to the expressway in Skokie. Maybe I should rethink that. Maybe I should do it locally. Maybe I should shop at Dominic's on Green Bay rather than go up to the Jewel. Those type of incentives, not really incentives, it's not going to cost us, but really pushing Evanston citizens to realize that what we're actually doing on a day-to-day basis is really affecting our tax bill, because we could be keeping our taxes minimum if we're doing other things outside of that. I also think we need to be very concerned that we're investing a lot of city resources, and I want to make sure those are coming in so that we're not going to have to tax higher because we lost some money for some bad decisions that we've made.
Thanks.
Sean?
I apologize for talking about projects that are not in your ward again, but there is a rumor that the 35-story tower at 708 Church is going to come back. Their construction permit time period expires in 2013. Neither of you were on council when that vote went through.
Right.
I would like to get First of all, did you support the tower project initially, and would you support an extension of time to pull a construction permit?
I did not support it at the time. I felt it was out of scale with our downtown. I can appreciate sort of the initial concept of this sort of monumental architectural tower, but I think it was while it was interesting in concept, I don't think it's practical for the city of Evanston. I think that as far as extending the time to build it, 5 years is a lot of time, and I think that we can see recovery in the economy now, and we've certainly proven that our downtown is a very viable, vibrant place to build, or to work, live, and obviously to build. We have other people building it all over the city, and I think that time is up.
Just to note before you answer, Mr. Sloane, that your predecessor did support it at Moran.
It did.
Absolutely. I opposed it as well, and I think if you go back to any of the newspapers during that period, I was out there opposing it. And I still do. I think it was too much. I think there was too many, there was things like parking for retail that they just ignored. There was just too many things that just didn't make sense in the project. And I think 5 years has been more than enough time. I also think if anything comes back, especially in that length of period, we should really be pushing it back down to the Planning Commission, getting their input, getting their thoughts. This council has been pretty good at ignoring their commission's recommendations and just doing whatever they felt was the right answer. And I think we really need to use, sitting on the Parks and Rec Board for 10 years, it was frustrating that we would make recommendations to the city council and it was kind of ignored or not really thought through. And I think, so many people volunteer their time to serve the city, and we need to not ignore their recommendations to the city council.
I would like to ask Alderman Tendam a follow-up on that, because Preservation Commission was ignored regarding the Northwestern Visitor Center. Now this Chicago Maine TIF has a new board and commission that's going to advise the city as to how those funds. How do we assure our citizens that as they serve on these volunteer boards that they will be listened to by the city?
First of all, I would disagree that they're ignored. I think the vast majority of the time we take the recommendations of these people, these residents on these committees. They're experts in these fields, a lot of them, and they certainly give it a whole lot of thought, debate, discussion. They hear the facts from people who are coming before them to propose ideas. I think that there have been some cases, and there have been a couple of very high-profile cases. The one you're mentioning, the Preservation Commission, the rejection of their denial for the parking garage at Northwestern. I voted for rejecting that because I didn't think it was so much a preservation issue. The plot of land there is largely landfill, and the historical value of that, while there are some historical buildings on the site, on that plot.
You're talking about?
At Northwestern. They're largely not historical. It's a mixture, it's a hodgepodge of different architectural styles. And I think this, this style is just one of many that's in that area. If I were the university, I would certainly want to have my visitor center on a very attractive lakefront setting. And I think, positioning where it is now allows them to expand behind that. The Preservation Commission's request was just to move it back. But that would really sit it between two very good parcels for expansion. The university is landlocked, as is the city, and we need to, we encourage them to build on campus because we go wild when they, take something off the tax rolls in the city. So I think it's their right to really, manage that property as they see best fit. And we have guidance over it, but I think, they did a good job of really preparing, proposing this and sort of preparing for the future.
What do you think right now in terms of Northwestern's contribution to the city? You just brought up their visitor center. They did give the city a fire engine, and there seems to be a much closer relationship between the city and the university, which is tax exempt, but does contribute other kind of fees and permits and everything. Are you satisfied with the way that's going, Alderman?
I'm satisfied with the way it's going. I would like to see a lot more. I think the one real problem or unresolved issue is the fire and life safety oversight we have for the campus. That's a huge amount of money on the part of the city, and I think that's I think the fact that we got a fire engine from the university is maybe an indication that they realize that as well. They should realize it, and I think that's an area where we can continue to improve on. I believe Northwestern gives us a whole lot of revenue in a lot of different ways. Some of it tangible, some of it is you can't even put a value on. But I mean, it's a huge economic engine for this community, and a whole lot more.
I've seen some joint power agreements between Yale and New Haven, between the University of Illinois and Champaign-Urbana. I think we need to move to that kind of scenario, that there's a committed relationship between the city and Northwestern. There's a committed dollar amount that's out there. I also think I'd love to see, as Northwestern is one of the largest employers in the community, I'd like them to step up when we have the unemployment and some of these 18 to 24-year-old kids that are needing employment, to reach out to our unemployed and actually bring them into Northwestern. I'd like to see the hospitals do the same thing and become more, even stronger partners in the community with us.
Spending on public safety has grown from 22% of the budget 4 years ago to 27% of the budget this year. And that's largely because of increases in pension payments, which may be continuing to rise. So I'd like to ask whether either of you see that there may be a need to reduce public safety staffing in the future to avoid crowding out other programs, recreation programs, or whatever else that you may want to see in the city budget. Mark Sloane, could you start with that?
Yeah, I don't see our ability to be able to really reduce that all that much in the near future. I mean, I think we need to kind of continue to look at how many fires and paramedic calls there are and make sure that we are living up to the right standards that are set by the experts out there to make sure we have the right amount of people there. From a police standpoint, I think as one of you put in your article talking about Bloomberg came and spoke and said his goal is to put the police where they're needed. So that may mean some police aren't in the 6th Ward as often as potentially we would like them to be. But those are kind of the give and takes that I think we need. I think from trying to reduce that staff, it's going to be very difficult right now.
Alderman Tendam.
I agree that public safety is really the number one thing that we need to provide for the residents of this community and the 6th Ward. Without that, we lose confidence, we lose property values, we lose all kinds of things that are very dear to us. And I think that if you look at the standards and consider particularly like our fire trucks, the number of men that man or women that man a fire truck is at the low end of the acceptable range. The City of Chicago has 5 men or women per vehicle. We have 3. I think our firemen and our policemen do an excellent job of working with the resources that they have. We don't even begin to understand and know all that they do. They are huge contributors in the community in many ways. I think we also see some benefits of some of the other public safety things we've put in place. Pedestrian incidents in the past 4 years has gone down 50%. I think that's huge. I think that really is a very important, and that's what we should be doing. We shouldn't be happy until it's 0, but 50% is a nice reduction in 4 years.
To follow up on that staffing question, many other suburbs employ contract firefighters or other part-time firefighters, and some, including Skokie, have some police officers who are on part-time positions. Evanston has not done any of that to date. Do you think that the city should be looking into those options for its public safety programs?
I think any option that is a proven or could possibly provide savings is certainly has to be looked into. I don't know that we have the capacity for that. We're a much different city than most. We have 2 hospitals in this town that we have to pretty much deliver people to. We have trauma centers. We have a lot of things that other communities don't have. Our police and fire are very, very busy, especially with emergency calls for life and death situations. So I don't know that you can compare us to many other communities. Chicago is a whole different picture, but our fire and police services are as busy And I think keeping, they're both very tight organizations that I think work well when they are very familiar and comfortable with each other.
Mark Sloane.
Yeah, I would agree with Mark. I think on public safety, you've got to have people that are committed to being here every day, that you have the morale, that they want to be here, that they're not thinking of what's my next part-time gig that I'm going to. They need to be a part of this. And so I think that's really important. I don't see that as being where contracts. I see, without a doubt, some of the other positions within the city could go to more of a contract, whether it's an accounting function or an IT function. That's where you don't have that impact to the community that you really need, and you need that morale to just keep going, and that's, to stay as positive as we need for those type of people.
Alderman Tendam, you mentioned pedestrian safety, and bringing that up, a reader actually wanted to ask about red light cameras and speed cameras. I know Alderman had talked about that briefly when reviewing pedestrian safety measures earlier this year. I wanted to ask you both whether those are things you'd support, red light cameras, speed cameras. Mr. Sloane, do you want to start?
Sure, I would not support them. I just don't think that makes sense. We're a fairly small community, and I just feel like, especially the people in the 6th Ward would look at it as just, oh, here's another way of the city trying to nickel and dime us and get us some money out of the thing. I also think from a sign perspective, we're way oversigned as well. So having, even though it's helped from the pedestrian standpoint, seeing more and more signs on our streets has really become kind of gross to look at. So I think we need to be careful on how we do these things. But I don't see red light or speed cameras as a good thing for our citizens in Evanston.
I would agree. I don't see either of them as being a real working solution to our problems with speeding or other, traffic calming. I think the money could be spent elsewhere for those reasons. We have installed a number of indicator signs that tell you how fast you're going. I think those have actually been very effective. I know that Chief Eddington does not support as well the notion of red light cameras. There are some statistics out there that pretty much conclude that people actually speed up when they know there's a camera there just to make the red light. And so, things like that can be very counterproductive. So I think the money would be better spent on other traffic calming and road issues.
Any specific traffic calming measures?
I think with regard to the 6th Ward, I think we have an opportunity, and you'll see this summer that we're going to narrow part of Central Street, which is called for in the Central Street plan. We unfortunately had a series of water main breaks last year, but now that we've fixed those and we have to go in and really resurface the entire stretch from Central Park to Hastings, it gives us an opportunity to fix the sidewalks in that area. They're impassable, and I think in the process of fixing the sidewalks, the street will become narrower, and I think it will eliminate that urge that a lot of people have to make Central Street, at least that section of Central Street, a 4-lane highway. That's unacceptable, and I think we will tackle that really, really directly this summer.
We're getting close to the end here. You got a quick question?
Well, as a follow-up, Mr. Sloane, you mentioned a feeling of getting nickeled and dimed, and Alderman Tendam, you mentioned difficulty parking. Evanston is known as a place where you don't want to park because you're going to get a ticket. And in fact, the chief parking enforcement officer is known as parking and revenue manager. Is this the sort of message we ought to be sending? Should we be trying to balance our budget on the backs of people who stayed 2 minutes too late at the parking meter?
Actually, parking fines are at an all-time low. We have actually shifted some of our emphasis there to other traffic issues. We're very concerned with the safety of children and seniors and our most at-risk members of the community, like mobility impaired. And I think that we can do better with parking meters. We are testing 2 different style, more automated parking meters where you can actually use credit card, or like in Chicago, you can put pay the box and then put the receipt on your car. A lot of times I think people don't pay the meters just because they don't have the money. I don't carry a lot of change, and I think that this will be a much more efficient way of really people using meters, and I think getting the parking patrol off their backs.
Well, I think leveraging on my Shop Evanston comment from earlier, I think any Evanston resident that has a permit on their car should be able to park in downtown Evanston and not pay a meter at all. I think we want to incent people to go to downtown Evanston. By doing that, I think it would make sense. Same thing goes for train parking. Here you've got people that really want to reduce that carbon footprint and take the train, yet we've got meters all along the trains or the parking. I think if you're going to the train, maybe you somehow get a special permit or something that allows you to park there if you're an Evanston resident, so you can drive to the train from 10 blocks away or 12 blocks away, from Crawford and Central all the way to the train station on Central Street, and be able to park your car and not have to worry about all the quarters or the credit cards. Again, that's something, it's counterproductive to say you've got to pay for something when it's really what we want people to do.
Actually, these new sophisticated meters will allow us to provide incentives. We can issue parking passes, parking cards, discount cards. That sort of sophistication is coming, and I can't wait, because I think we need to encourage people to be downtown, to use mass transit, just everything you said. And I think these sophisticated meters will really help that along.
I want to thank our guest, Alderman Mark Tendam, challenger Mark Sloane. I don't know if that's the way you view yourself. And we want to remind our viewers. We want to remind our viewers that the election, Evanston municipal election, and school board elections are April 9th this year. Early voting starts March 25th. Thank you, panelists. Boy, I didn't have to do anything. I'm really earning my pay, aren't I? It sounds great. Thank you very much, and we'll see you guys again. Good luck.